Ms Bowie, we're all concerned, obviously, about the environment alongside the cost of living. Why does the government think now is the right time to announce more oil and gas drilling in the North Sea?
Well, this is essentially about our energy security. The International Climate Change Committee recognises that fossil fuels will play a large part of our energy baseload for many decades to come, which is why we think it's right that those fossil fuels, that oil and gas, comes from British waters, using British workers, ensuring that the revenue comes to the British Exchequer, rather than being reliant on hostile foreign actors to import those fossil fuels and indeed create higher CO2 emissions by importing what we need to keep the lights on in this country. So that's why we're announcing our intention to max out our reserves in the North Sea. But this in no way distracts or detracts from our net zero ambitions. We were the first major economy to legislate for net zero. We've decarbonised faster than any other G7 nation. And indeed, the other announcement we're making today, indeed the two carbon capture projects, the first up here in the northeast of Scotland, Acorn, and indeed Viking in the Humber, will indeed contribute towards our net zero target by capturing millions of tonnes of CO2 emissions before they reach the atmosphere, burying them underground, ensuring that we're able to move towards our net zero future with certainty.
But critics will say that this is just greenwashing. You know, essentially what you're doing is taking out more fossil fuels and simply announcing carbon capture schemes in an attempt to offset them doesn't detract from the fact that you are removing more fossil fuels from the environment, which does seem to contradict your net zero pledges.
Not at all. It doesn't contradict it in any way. Both the Scottish Government and the UK Government's modelling shows that carbon capture and storage will play an integral role in getting to net zero. Other countries around the world are investing in this technology. It's why we need to be at the forefront of that, creating tens of thousands of new jobs in the process and investing in renewables. We have the first, second, third and fourth largest offshore wind farms off the coast of Great Britain right now. Just 2 weeks ago, I launched Great British Nuclear, which is the cleanest, safest and most secure way to decarbonise our baseload. But as I said, the International Climate Change Committee itself admits that fossil fuels will play a part in terms of delivering part of our energy baseload for many decades to come. So we think it's right that those fossil fuels come from British waters, we create jobs for British workers, and that the revenue comes to the British Exchequer rather than being in hock to hostile foreign actors such as Vladimir Putin, and indeed creating more CO2 emissions by importing those fossil fuels to the UK. But as I said, we are still committed to net zero. We're driving on at pace, and indeed we're decarbonising faster than any of our competitors.
Critics will say, though, that you are simply diluting your green pledges and that perhaps it's no coincidence it comes just after the Uxbridge by-election, when it seems that voters very much gave their view on what they think of these kind of pledges.
Look, well, I make no apologies for the Conservative Party being the only party that's not either in hock to Just Stop Oil or has a presumption against new licences, as the Labour Party and the Scottish National Party are. We're committed to the future of the North Sea. We're committed to transition, absolutely, to new technologies, to renewables, but we're also committed to securing hundreds of thousands of Scottish and indeed wider British jobs in the process. That's why we are announcing what we are today in terms of the new licences. It's about security. It's about moving towards net zero in a managed way through a transition. And it's about meeting our net zero ambitions. That is exactly what we're doing today.
What matters more to this government, green policies or the cost of living, do you think?
I think they're both very important. We need to move towards net zero, but we can't do so without recognising there are huge cost of living pressures on the British people right now, which is why we have to do so in a way that causes least damage to people's personal finances, which is why we're looking at where, for example, low traffic neighbourhoods are opposed by local communities, what we can do to support them. But as I say, we need to move towards net zero. We're committed to doing that. The British people support us in that, but it's about doing so in a managed way. It's about transition. It's not about turning off the taps or switching flicking that switch. Nothing will happen overnight. We're doing this in a managed way, and that is why we're very pleased to be announcing the carbon capture, utilisation and storage plans as we are. It's why we're investing in new technologies, but it's also why we're securing those jobs in the North Sea, those hundreds of thousands of skilled jobs, specifically here in Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland, which are reliant on our oil and gas sector. So all part of a wider mix of ensuring support for the British people becoming energy secure and independent, which ultimately will drive down bills and support the British people.
But there'll be some that say that this announcement, which we've seen supported this morning on this programme by Ian Duncan-Smith, is playing to those in your party who are perhaps not as progressive on the environment, on energy. Ian Duncan-Smith's one of 43 Conservative MPs who've written a letter today asking the Prime Minister to delay the ban on the sale of petrol and diesel cars from the current deadline of 2030 to 2035.
Well, the Prime Minister's made clear that he remains committed to the phase-out of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to drive existing petrol diesel cars post that point. But this is the party that legislated for net zero. This is the party that has moved forward in terms of investing in new clean green technologies. This is the party that just 2 weeks ago announced the launch of Great British Nuclear and small modular reactors, and are committed to building new gigawatt-scale nuclear reactors, which are the safest, most secure and cleanest way of moving towards a clean energy baseload. So our commitment to net zero cannot be in doubt, but neither can our commitment to the British people. We stepped up this year to pay half of everybody in this country's energy bills, by the way, as a result of taxing our North Sea oil and gas, 75% of their revenue. So we are absolutely determined to support the British people through the cost of living crisis, but we are equally determined to cut our carbon emissions and meet our net zero targets. And the two are not in competition. They are not mutually exclusive. We will achieve both.
But you talk about nuclear, but then critics will say, well, look at Hinkley Point C, which is running over budget and late, the development there. It's one thing for the government to say, oh, we'll be back nuclear, look at all of these great new plans. But you've got a nuclear infrastructure there. Why is the government not doing more to get that up and running as fast as possible?
Well, Hinkley Point C's moving forward at an incredible pace. I've been down there to Hinkley myself, and I've seen the work that they are doing. Indeed, the fact that they were able to carry on working at the pace they were through the COVID pandemic, despite the restrictions on construction work that we saw, is quite incredible, and it will be on stream in due course, delivering power for 7 million homes. And let's not ignore the fact that where in Finland they've brought a new nuclear reactor onto the grid just recently, energy prices have fallen and people's bills have fallen by about 70%. That's what we're seeking to do through our new nuclear projects, and that will play into the wider mix, because if we can become more energy secure, become more energy independent, become less reliant on hostile foreign actors for our energy baseload, ultimately people's bills will be lower. And that's everything we're doing has that in mind. So that's why we're investing in new nuclear, that's why we're moving forward at pace with carbon capture and storage, and that's why, yes, we're investing in new drilling licenses in the North Sea.